Ми сьогодні починаємо з, в принципі, оптимістичного обговорення, тому що рішення про те, що ми маємо можливість починати переговори про вступ до ЄС, це вже не порожня декларація, це вже процедурний крок, це важливий крок, але він так само приносить разом з собою багато викликів, і ми зараз будемо ці виклики обговорювати. Я хотів би запропонувати, щоб ми не мусили перекладати між собою, і щоб ми всі могли активніше включатися в дискусію, перейти в цій панелі на англійську мову і англійською, щоб всі учасники могли висловлювати свої позиції. Я хотів би представити наших учасників. Міхаель Гahler – це наш колега з Німеччини, який є депутатом Європейського парламенту. Він багато років займається тематикою, пов'язаною з пострадянським простором і пов'язаною з перетвореннями, які відбуваються в нашій частині світу, починаючи від того, що активну політичну кар'єру почав тоді, коли, власне, об'єдналася, впала стіна і об'єдналася Німеччина, і почалися великі зміни. І так само працював із країнами Балтії і працював з тематикою перетворень і в Угорщині, і, відповідно, сьогодні є одним з голосів на підтримку України в Європарламенті. Павло Клімкін, колишній міністр закордонних справ України, який залишається дуже активним в своїй публічній діяльності як фахівця і коментатора того, що відбувається на дипломатичному просторі. І the last but not the least, Іванна Klympush-Tsintsadze, яка є українським парламентарем і, крім того, ще має цілу попередню історію фахової присутності в українській євроінтеграції. Вона була профільним віце-прем'єр-міністром. Вона так само дуже багато працювала і в аналітичному секторі, в громадянському суспільстві до своєї політичної кар'єри. І Іванна Климпуш-Цинцадзе теж дуже пов'язана з регіоном. Вона, власне, родом звідси. Тобто, хоч з іронією сьогодні з нами присутня через зв'язок. So, I will stop with the introductions here. And my first question will be regarding the type of negotiations that we expect. One of the things that I was stricken with is when I asked the experts on Ukrainian EU integration, whether we can count on a positive sum game approach in negotiations. All of them said no, because the interests of the countries vary, because there are many countries that have different interests. They will be extremely protective of their interests. So my question is, what can we do so the EU treats, on the EU side, treats negotiations with Ukraine as negotiation with its future self? Could I start with you, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I think when it comes to the negotiation framework, I mean, first we need this decision, unanimity in December, and then by March a negotiation framework, and then there are some tasks still to be fulfilled, and then I think it is wise to reflect or to contact with those who are amongst those who have only recently gone through the same procedure, because it's not a special procedure for you. Some ask me, well, will there be a fast track for Ukraine? And my answer is no, but if you are faster than others, then it can be fast. And you know what needs to be done. You are, in the meanwhile, it's amazing how experienced you are when I see papers and documents that have been established on the Ukrainian side. Well, we also say paper is patient, it's about implementation. But I think many of you have understood how the procedures go and how we can also be helpful. I mean, we have a lot of expertise inside the country from our side as well. So then there is a close cooperation. So I would say simply follow the agenda, and that means there are some points I could at a later stage enumerate some key words in this regard, what should be done by March, and that sets already the agenda. And then it is also important, and if I see my dear colleague Ivanna, whom I will be missing in my next conference over the weekend, unfortunately, which was foreseen, we know that one of the essential things, apart from the different ministries who have to be, so to say, ready to apply and to work on that, it is also the Verkhovna Rada, which is a key institution that will have to digest, that is perhaps the word. There is so much to eat in the sense of legislation. You will have to work a lot on making the Verkhovna Rada fit for purpose, because the ministries have far more people. You know, there are thousands of bureaucrats. Well, bureaucrat has a negative connotation. Thousands of civil servants who are working in the ministries and who can prepare the papers for the ministers and to present it to the negotiation table. But the parliament, which has to fulfill its constitutional role, will also have to be equipped and to be enabled to digest that all, and not only to serve as a rubber stamp, because that would be a danger also in the light of the public. When they have the impression we elect certain people in the parliament, and they are only then like a robot, like a computer, up and down with the hands, and just not whitewashing, just voting what the government are presenting.
Let me just clarify. Do you imply that the faster the better?
No, the better implemented, the better. So to say, as I said, it's not about deciding in the parliament, it's about implementation.
So what kind of sense of urgency do we have, if we have any?
I mean,
on the European side, at least.
On the European side, I mean, there is a sense of urgency on your side. On our side, the sense of urgency is that through this new enlargement mood that was actually triggered by the Russian aggression, and not only with regard to Ukraine, but the topic enlargement as such, which has been sleeping, and you have heard over the years this word of the enlargement fatigue, so that no appetite for enlargement. I think there is now the awareness on our side that we are in, as I refer to it, in a geopolitical conflict. It is about the future of Europe as a whole and strong. And that is why we need to get our acts together. And that means we must embrace the principle of enlargement. I mean, we have promised it for a long time to the Western Balkans, and now we are promising it to Ukraine and to Moldova, and we have upgraded even Georgia. I would say probably at the frustration of the Georgian government. They probably, with their attitude, they had hoped that we would deny them anything, but now we have upgraded them, so they have to deliver now and cannot blame us for anything. So, and that gives us then on our side also the necessity to think how to remain able to decide. And that is the issues which we still decide unanimously. It's not that many. I mean, there are people who do not actually want enlargement and who then problematize problematize this issue of unanimity. If you look in detail, there is not that much, and certainly not in everyday decision-making. Everyday decision-making means single market, means also even the migration issues, and they are all in qualified majority. The only thing that is in unanimity is the financial framework. That is why it is so important now to get the unanimous agreement for the Ukraine facility, the 50 billion, and foreign and security policy. That is also the only thing. And then again, foreign and security policy is not every day about war and peace, but it is about a verbal note in Bamako, whether we say something or not. And that can definitely be done by a qualified majority. So that is for us now the push to get really to become sober on these issues and accept such principle.
Let me address the question to our Ukrainian colleagues. What is your assessment of this moment? How do you think we are ready or not ready, or to advance with European integration at this stage? Maybe Ivanna, Klympush?
Well, thank you very much. І я дуже шкодую, що цього разу не можу бути присутня фізично. I will continue, Mikhail, I will continue in English. Well, I think all of us are very happy to see the decision that is paving the way for the next stage of relationship between Ukraine and the EU. And I think it's both well deserved by the Ukrainian nation, by the Ukrainian society, and we have to understand that this path did not start with February 24 or February 25th here in Ukraine, but it did start 10 years ago with the Revolution of Dignity. And I think that we have to understand that this path has already taken us pretty many years. And let me start also with a bit disagreeing with Mikhail, because I think that this new enlargement mood, it has not been triggered by the Russian aggression. I think it has been triggered by the actual response of the Ukrainian society to that Russian aggression. And it is because of how the Ukrainian society, Ukrainian armed forces, Ukrainian people, Ukrainian nation have responded, and what they did that has actually changed the mood and has changed the attitude in the European Union. And today, I think what we are seeing also pretty much a geopolitical decision of the European Union with regard to the next potential wave of enlargement. Whether we are ready or not, obviously we have done a lot over this period of time. Obviously, we have mobilized resources in order to try to fast track our efforts here in Ukraine in order to be able to already shoot for the opening of negotiations at the end of this year. And we do understand that this window of opportunity of goodwill is also not necessarily a given for decades or for years. So we have to use it very, very efficiently on our side. I think that there are a couple of very important things that Ukraine has to focus on right now. I think our institutional capacity is definitely not enough in order to be successful on this path. I think that we have to heavily invest in people, in professionals, in public administration reform, in making sure that we actually have the backbone for this ability to transform the country and for this ability to actually reach the declared goal. I don't think that we are paying enough attention to this particular issue. Whether we are ready politically, I think also what is incredibly important. Definitely we see the great numbers of the support of the Ukrainian people that are going 85-90% of support of Ukraine joining the European Union. And I also understand, and we have to be wary of that this is very much emotional support of hope and the expectation of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So for us, it's also a huge and important challenge here internally to sustain that support, to make sure that we are not, the society is not turning to some fatigue component if there are no deliveries, both internally from the Ukrainian authorities for the Ukrainian people, but also how this process is being further pushed from the side of the, and supported from the side of the European Union. So that's another challenge that I see in the nearest future as well. And also, just the third thing, that we have to ensure that on this way, when we are moving forward, we do pay a lot of attention to, not exclusively, as it was predominantly with the association agreement, not exclusively to the economic side of transformation towards the EU standards, rules, and procedures. I think it is really high time to pay attention to something that is only a few pages in the association agreement, that's the political part of the agreement, and that is the basis of the European Union, which is the political side part of the Copenhagen criteria. And I think that is something that we should not lose sight of during the wartime, and under the pretext of the martial law. We should not backslide on all of these issues, because it will be close to impossible to get to the point when we will actually reach the desired strategic goal, and I call it also strategic dream of Ukrainian society.
Well, thank you very much. And my question to Pavlo Klimkin is rather a question to a diplomat. I know it's a current. I know it's often mistaken that Euro integration is something that diplomats do, and in fact, it is something that has to deal with any sector of life. But the diplomats do conduct negotiations. And knowing how important the part of negotiations are, do you expect that Ukrainian side is ready? Does the Ukrainian side have the capacity to conduct negotiations efficiently? There are fears across the business community in Ukraine. There's talk inside the civil society that we have to be ready, and we have to be able to do several things at the same time. Ukraine is under stress because of war. Ukraine is under stress because the very same people who are involved in preparation of documents, in preparation of positions, are the very same people who actually do a lot of volunteer work. How do you assess Ukraine's ability to be well represented in negotiations with the EU, since we will have little chance to replay if something goes wrong?
I actually know what you are getting at, Yevgen. Diplomats are normally perceived kind of cynical, cold-blooded guys. So I gonna play here a bad guy, because Mikhail is a friend, and he enjoys our hospitality. Ivanka is good by definition and by her position. So let me play bad guy here. There should be one in this room. My first point, our enlargement process gonna be absolutely unique. There is no precedent for something like that. And I don't mean there should be any discounts for Ukraine. It's bad for Ukraine, bad for the European Union, bad for the West. But our enlargement and our membership in the European Union does not go without security. Forget about it. It could be about NATO, and it's the best option. It could be with some transitional stages. But there are gonna be no sustainable and effective EU membership without security, just because the current regime in Russia is existentially interested to disrupt our European integration. For them, it's not just a priority, it's existentially important in the sense of how they understand themselves. And there is no difference in the sense of understanding whether it's NATO or European Union, because such discussions are still there. In the European Union, in DC, Bill Burns once, when he was still ambassador in Moscow, wrote a piece about our NATO membership being the reddest of the red lines. On the European Union, it's the same. Just recall 2013. There is no difference. So it would mean that our common efforts, I mean Ukrainian efforts and EU efforts to get Ukraine in, would meet an existential drive how to kill it off. And the only way how to support it is to embrace security. It's about us. It's about European Union. But the one who could deliver, really the one, like a Highlander, is the United States. So fundamentally, our European integration, at least in this moment, fundamentally depends on our American friends. So it's about the West, not just about us and European Union. That's my first point. And if we don't get real security guarantees, we're gonna get not into a sort of Finlandization state. Well, not trying to push.
Current Finlandization.
Exactly, because I like, we need current Finlandization, not the previous one. We're gonna get into a state what I would call under-Finlandization. Not a real one, because even our EU membership, sustainable and effective, is not possible without security. The second point is about our ability, how you've described it. Of course, in the course of war, it's fundamentally difficult to have a real focus on delivering without discounts on the EU agenda. But we have no excuse. Fundamentally, we have to prove the Russians wrong and to make the point we have to surprise everyone again. But if we are not able to deliver, we're gonna get into a different trap. A trap which is now being widely discussed within the European Union. Let's have a kind of phased approach to the membership. 1, 2, 3, a big step towards the common market. Single market, a kind of different step with decision taken. So in some moment in time, our risk, and I believe it's a real one because I'm playing a bad guy, remember, is to get into this double trap of under-Finlandization and under EU membership, not a kind of full EU membership. And if it's the case, it's gonna be a dream for Moscow. So fundamentally, a situation which gonna collapse in some moment in time. And my answer to that on security, we can discuss it separately. We discuss it many times. But on our capacity, we can develop our institutions because we are running against the clock at the speed we need. It's a fact. We don't have enough potential to play this game, but we have to. So let's use and let's combine our our resources with the European Union, with the others. The whole approach towards our EU membership should be changed. And it's not just about money. Money is important. Mikhail has mentioned it. But the way how we're going to approach it, the way how we can use the existing EU institutions to deliver together with us, how we can use to oversee different programs and different EU policies is critically important. Some people call our EU enlargement kind of geopolitical one. I agree, but there is no agreement what does it mean to have geopolitical enlargement. And here it's basically about credibility. For us, it's existential point. We can deliver on our security and actually our existence only becoming part of the West, and very quickly. But in the same way, for the West and for the EU not to deliver on Ukraine becoming a success story would mean a fundamental loss of credibility. So let's change the approach. Let's change the approach to security and choose the way how we're going to approach EU membership. And my last point, very simple one, a very short one. What I see in the European Union and in the West, that the change of mind is normally happening and possible from crisis to crisis. It's not an evolutionary one, kind of considering different risks and ideas and saying, look guys, now we have to get better. It does not work this way. But our war is a fundamental crisis, not just for us, but for the West, should basically transform the EU mentality. Either you are at the same reality, because the EU is still a very positive beast, but the beast of the 20th century. The point is whether the EU is fit for the 21st century. I believe it could be the case with Ukraine. And it could not be the case without Ukraine, as simple as that.
Okay, well, basically threw the ball onto the European territory, so let me harden it. If we are to ever see Vice President Tucker Carlson, if we are ever to see the return of Trump into the presidential office, and if we are to see the US trying to withdraw from NATO, how would that change the calculus of the European integration of Ukraine from the Brussels perspective?
Well, I would then say we can even less afford not to have you, because you're the most experienced in fighting, to put it, if it is about the existential thing. You're the only ones who, so to say, in living memory, recall how that goes. And that is a tragedy for you currently, but it would then be, well, a glimpse of hope for us, because at least we have you who know how to fight. But I'm not, I wouldn't like to look at this doomsday scenario. Actually, my ironic approach is in this regard, I wish that Donald Trump be the candidate for the Republicans, because that is almost 100% sure that he will lose. And insofar, because anybody else, if it were DeSantis, if it were some intelligent of those radicals, then it is more dangerous than some crazy guy like him. But no, I'm pretty sure he will be the candidate and he will lose. And so we gain another 4 years. But that is not enough, because we really have to get our acts together. And by the way, Ivanna, I agree with you. I was not precise. You were more precise when it comes to when did the enlargement fatigue end. It was because we saw indeed that you are fighting for your survival, but also for this European perspective. And because that was something that many of us did not expect. We feared that you would lose, and you proved the opposite. And that is why I think it's definitely worthwhile to pursue this path. But on the security, as you said, I mean, if it were that the worst case and an American reorientation came, well, currently we have pledged 2% of efforts. Before the fall of the wall, we had 4%, and we didn't live that bad with 4%. And apart from the money, it requires the will, not only the ability, but also the will to defend ourselves. And I think that is best developed in Ukraine, of course, and not in our wealthy and lazy and complacent societies in the West. I really have a fear that although last week the German defense minister, he held a speech and said very clearly that Germany, he spoke for the German case, but I think that applies to entire European NATO, has to prepare to be able to conduct a war, kriegstüchtig, he said in German, to defend, to conduct a defensive war. I mean, it fails at the moment because I think we have ammunition for 2 days, that is the reality. But I mean, the mentality is the thing that needs to change, and that requires political leadership, and not only a one-off from the defense minister. Such a blood, sweat and tears speech must be conducted by all heads of government in our member states, and then in a simultaneous and harmonious way be told on the European Union level, and do everything to prepare for the worst, but to hope for the best. And that means that everything that we do on defense is on the same time a strengthening of the European pillar of NATO, but also, in the worst case, that the American abandons us, strengthens our own abilities. So we need to do the same thing for the two purposes, and hoping still for the better version, that the Americans in our lifetime stay for a while, and when we have got you in and the others and are really bigger and stronger and have this political motivation, then I'm confident. Otherwise, we could stop making politics, and I'm not prepared to do that.
And let me continue with you for a moment, because the US is not the only challenge. The war has effects on Ukraine that forces the Ukrainian government to over-centralize itself. As a result, maybe a side effect, maybe not a side effect, but the Ukrainian government is effectively sealed from the positions of the Ukrainian NGOs, analytical centers. So the question is, if the role of the civil society is so important, is Brussels ready to open the door to hear the position of the Ukrainian civil society in these negotiations?
Well, perhaps we listen more than the government that you refer to. I think the active and professional civil society of Ukraine is an enormous resource for us to ask the right questions to the Ukrainian government. So, but where should we get the information from other than the civil society? And many in civil society in Ukraine get their information from inside the government structures, from those people who see that there are decisions taken that are not good or not correct, but there are certain superiors who are taking these decisions, and then they spread the news to the civil society, and then it comes to us. I mean, that is one of those ways where we are getting informed. And of course, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, in a war situation, there is a certain top-down decision process necessary. But you don't have to get used to it. It must be clear that after the war, there is a requirement. It's not only the text and the spirit of the constitution, but it is also then the political attitude in everyday life, how to return to a normally function democracy. And that is the Ukraine that we will get into the European Union, a normally functioning democracy. And in this regard, we will stay vigilant, your own civil society will stay. And as I always say, the real reformers in politics, those in civil society, and those who are the friends of Ukraine, I think we are united in this wish and in this resolve to keep you on the right track. And that means on the track to the EU on the one side, but also on the domestic scene, to return or to further develop the foreseen normal democratic setup that the constitution provides and that can also be further developed.
Let me challenge the monopoly that Pavlo Klimkin has self-imposed on him, and ask a question to Ivanna. You are not only a person with tremendous experience in Euro integration issues, but you're also a representative of a opposition political party. And even though the opposition and the government are quite close on Euro integration issues, still you feel and you see how silenced the political opposition is at the time of war, how the civil society can't break through to where it used to be. Do you feel that we might be in a situation that this will have a dangerous effect on negotiations between the European Union and Ukraine without the voice of the civil society, without the voice of the political opposition? Do you fear that you will not be heard at a certain point?
So you are trying to make me a bad guy, right? Okay. Well, definitely we do understand that, martial law presents certain limitations to some of the processes and some derogation, objective derogation from some of the usual practices. And I think that everybody who is fighting for the country to survive and making sure that we are using all the resources in order for that to happen, to both survive and transform at the same time, do understand that. And those limitations would be acceptable if it was not becoming unproportional to whatever the need might be. Because yes, top-down approach is good and sometimes important. Even some of the procedures that are being cut during the wartime are definitely important to be cut in order to get something very efficiently and fast to our defense forces. However, that does not provide for the political censorship, or that should not provide for the political censorship. That should not provide for the disregard of voices that are also looking in the same direction as a incredibly strong Ukrainian civil society, but not necessarily looking and thinking of the path in the same way as the authorities do, or the smaller political forces, or the opposition political forces. And so obviously we are not, we should not talk about, and I don't think that there is right now a real opposition in the Ukrainian society, to European integration. Finally, there's basically no opposition to Euro-Atlantic integration. There is no opposition to winning the war against the Russian aggression, to making sure that sanctions against Russia have to be strengthened and imposed. There is no opposition to the necessity to punish Russian Federation, and there is no necessity for, there is no opposition for unity, right? But there is definitely opposition that under the pretext of all of this needs of the martial law, we are rolling back on many important things. And I do believe that right now, even in the European Commission's report, we see a pretty diplomatic packaging of the processes that are definitely speaking about already serious alarm bells in the Ukrainian state. And I appreciate that our colleagues in the European Commission have, formulated it very, very diligently and very mildly. However, we should take it seriously, and we should take it seriously because definitely we already see that some of those who are really skeptical and who are not friends of Ukraine and who are not willing to to embrace Ukraine either within the EU or within NATO, they are using these actions within the country to manipulate with the further need to support Ukraine, thus trying to ensure that we are not being supported in the future. And that is something that we cannot allowed to happen. So that's why I don't only see the problems with potential European integration or Euro-Atlantic integration. I do see the problems with potential support that we are existentially depending on. And we can talk about security as much as we can, but if we will fail to not only declare but to support something that Ukrainian armed forces, Ukrainian defense forces, and Ukrainian society is defending today, then we might end up with a serious problem of decreasing support of our country.
My last question will be to Pavlo Klimkin. The figures of institutional trust, how Ukrainians trust the state institutions, that just came in, and what they show is that there is a backslide. Ukrainians are withdrawing this incredible credit of institutional trust that they gave to the formal institutions, the state institutions in the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Now they're slowly taking that trust back, and they're making the government less and less powerful. Do you see the challenges for the negotiation process with the mandate from the Ukrainian society in all of its diversity? Do you see that, for instance, business community or religious community or someone else at a certain point may come out and say, no, we don't want to do it this way because we have a different stand? What do you anticipate?
The short answer, yes. The longer one, yes, and fundamental ones. And to explain myself, any integration, but especially European integration, simply is not possible without institutions. Point. Basically, what you do in the sense of adapting your legislation to the EU ones, and there are approximately 29,000 different acts, directives, is not just when you do something in the parliament and tick it off. It's basically creating institutional basis for delivering and all that. I remember it quite well from the association agreement or from the visa-free process. And my point is very simple. Without a good mixture of people commitment and institutional capacity, we are nowhere. Let's imagine tomorrow we start negotiations, or in 2 weeks, in 2 months, whenever. So my simple point, what is our position on a particular point, and how this position has been shaping up? Because you've mentioned, Yevhen, civil society is of course important, but another big dimension is business. Mm-hmm. So fundamentally, I studied Romanian or Polish or Croatian European integration. It had taken them literally years to consult with business and to understand their weaknesses and their strengths, and to understand what kind of transitional period they're gonna need, whether it's 2 years or 20 years. So it's about people fundamentally. It's our economy is still a very funny mixture of post-Soviet economy and something else. And the last point, starting these negotiations, we need a vision. For example, we start negotiations on our future energy system. What kind of energy system on the basis of total destruction we're gonna have, whether it's fully about renewables, whether it's about nuclear, whether it's about our Martian friends, I don't know. And many, many years ago, I started learning English, reading Alice in Wonderland, and you know this famous point when Alice met the Cheshire Cat and saying, where should I go? And he answered basically, where do you want to get to? So fundamentally, what is our vision? Where do we want to get to? And on this basis, we need to start talking, not top-down, not bottom-up, but with businesses, with civil society, and to start shaping both the vision and how to get there. Because our risk now is a funny one. We can start our negotiations with all kind of positive emotion, enthusiasm, and after that, basically hovering into the wall and saying, what else? What is next? And it's one of the most fundamental points, because we need our vision and our voice to get successful there.
Well, I was hoping that I would be less worried after this panel than I was before. Apparently I'm not, but I do hope that the other panels in this wonderful conference will bring more optimism. I would like to thank this incredible panel of experts. Please give them a round of applause. And thank you to everyone who literally puts a lot of effort. I know each one of you has went far and beyond to make this possible. And let's hope that the outcome of the negotiations will be the one that we will not regret about in the future. Thank you very much.